guys, it's Natalie. I'm here to bring you my June wrap-up that is so late that we have to start like right now. In the month of June, I read 13 books. I can't believe it. That's a little bit crazy. Not as much as April with my 14 books, but 13 books. I was pretty impressed with myself. I read 4 fantasy, 6 mystery thriller, 2 sci-fi, and 1 memoir. Memoir. I've just accepted the fact that I cannot say that. The first book I read was the second book in the Lunar Chronicles, Scarlet. I've been waiting for a while, about 5 months, to jump back into the Lunar Chronicles, and I had so much fun doing it. Scarlet, of course, is a retelling of Little Red Riding Hood, like Cinder was a retelling of Cinderella. Now, Cinder is still a character because we have a big background story that's kind of going to go on. It's going to continue on in the books, and then we have these like smaller, shorter stories or sub-stories that are within each book. So obviously, like I said, this one was Little Red Riding Hood, so we had the introduction of the Scarlet character and the introduction of the Wolf character. And I've had so many of you ask me, what did you think of Wolf? I liked Wolf's character a whole lot. I liked him better than the Prince. I thought he was just really a dynamic character. I kind of saw where they had to go with the story because it is a retelling of Little Red Riding Hood, but no, I enjoyed his character quite a bit. I can't wait to jump into, I think Cress is next, which I think is a retelling of Rapunzel. I think I got that straight in my head. But I can't read that for this month because I'm reading Heartless this month. As many of you know, I'm only allowed to read 1 Marissa Meyer book a month, so I'm spreading them out. But I did very much enjoy it, and I gave it 4 stars. Now, some of you might be remembering, you gave Cinder 5 stars. I did like Cinder a little bit better. I don't know if it was because it was the first book and I was being introduced to the world that it kind of pushed me into the 5-star range. But Scarlet was still very good, and as you know, 4 stars is still a really good rating. And of course, my second favorite author is Miranda, so I jumped into that next with a book called Hysteria. In Hysteria, we have a main character named Mallory who stabbed her ex-boyfriend in self-defense, but she doesn't really remember why. The whole evening is kind of a blur. So she's not in trouble with the police or anything. They were able to say it was self-defense, like I said, but they want to give her a fresh start, so they sent her off to a kind of fancy preparatory boarding school so that, like I said, she can start off fresh. She doesn't know anybody. Nobody there knows about her past and what happened. So it seems like a good idea, right? It seemed like a good idea to me, but of course, something had to go wrong. Pretty much as soon as she gets there, she feels like she's being followed. She just gets a lot of creepy feelings. She starts getting weird messages. And then a classmate shows up dead, and it really looks like she might be the guilty party. And the only way for her to figure out what in the world has been going on at this new school is for her to really dig deep and try to remember what happened that night. What happened to make you stab your ex-boyfriend? And obviously, we have to go on a journey for her to recall these memories, but it was a really good Miranda book. You know, sometimes I give them 3 stars, sometimes I give them 4 stars, but this was a very good, I'd say 4.5 stars. And I don't normally do half stars, but this was one of my favorite Miranda books so far. This month, I also finally jumped into one of those Dean Koontz books I bought at the used bookstore. I jumped into Mr. Murder. And you know, with a title like Mr. Murder, you better have a killer book. Bump. I know, don't quit your day job. But I really enjoyed this. I was really nervous. Dean Koontz back in the day was very hit or miss. His writing isn't very consistent, but this was a really good one. Now, the main character in this one is a guy named Marty Stillwater. He is an author. He pretty much has a pretty happy, perfect life. He has a beautiful, loving wife. He has 2 beautiful little daughters until a man that looks exactly like him shows up and demands that he give him his life back, saying, you stole my wife, you stole my children, you stole my life. What is going on? And of course, this was one of my sci-fi thrillers, so there's quite a sci-fi explanation, and it's pretty good. So I highly recommend if you want to jump into some old school books. I believe this came out sometime in the 90s, if I were to guess. This was a good one. Remember it, Mr. Murder. After reading Mr. Murder, I realized I needed to finally jump into some Leigh Bardugo because I was very nervous about jumping into Sarah J. Maas, and I really enjoyed The Throne of Glass, so that gave me the confidence to jump into Shadow and Bone. And I did like it. Thank goodness. I wanted to be in the Sarah J. Maas Cool Club, and now I'm in the Leigh Bardugo Cool Club. Could it get any better than this? For the few of you who have no idea about what this book is, I'll tell you really briefly. There is this great nation in the fantasy land called Ravka, I believe that's how it's pronounced, that has been basically cut in two by this place called the Fold, which is this mysterious dark place with lots of scary monsters. It's very, very dangerous. Our main character is Alina, and she is a soldier who goes into this Fold and discovers she has a magical power that she was completely unaware of. Because of this magical power, they whisk her away to the royal court so that she can be trained by the Darkling because they think that she might be the answer to finally get rid of this Fold that's been dividing the nation. But of course, there's bumps and twists and turns along the way, and I enjoyed it very much, and I gave it 4 stars. No, I didn't give it 5 stars, I gave it 4 stars. I'm sorry, guys, I liked it a lot, but it did not reach the 5-star status for me. But maybe the sequels will. After that, I jumped into another mystery thriller and I read After Anna. This book was so gripping emotionally. In this book, our main character is Julia, and her 5-year-old daughter goes missing. She's a little bit late to come pick her up, and somehow in the confusion of teachers thinking that she was supposed to go, she was not watched properly, and she goes missing for a whole week. And you feel, oh my gosh, you feel for this woman. I mean, she is searching everywhere. There are search parties. And just when they think, you know what, it's time to give up hope, the girl just shows right back up again. But the crazy thing is, even though Anna's been gone for like a week, she remembers nothing. She can give them almost no information. So it takes quite a while to unfold what in the world happened. Why did somebody kidnap her only to give her back a week later? And it's very interesting, and I very much enjoyed it. But like I said, emotionally very gripping. I mean, just a child going missing, and you go through it with this character. And oh my gosh, and you're so elated when she comes back, and then the frustration of not knowing, like, you don't remember anything? Like, nothing? But I did give it 4 stars. I forgot to tell you at the beginning, this month I had only 4 and 5-star reads. I had no 3-star reads, and I had no DNFs. And if you're watching going, what about 1 or 2 stars? I don't do 1 or 2 stars because if it's a 1 or 2 star, I'm gonna DNF it. But this was really, really great. If you like mystery thrillers, I highly recommend this one. After that, I had to jump right on into the 2 books that are in the Reese Witherspoon Hello Sunshine book club so I could do my Reese Witherspoon book club review. And if you watched that, you know what I'm about to tell you. I discovered a very special book called The Rules of Magic that I want each and every one of you to read. Seriously, oh my gosh, one of the best books I have ever read. This is a prequel to Practical Magic, which is both a book and a movie. The movie had Nicole Kidman and Sandra Bullock playing the main characters, and this was so wonderful. I enjoyed the movie. I never read the book, but this was so wonderful. It's about 3 siblings in the 1960s. They're growing up in New York City, and they're natural-born witches. They're born into a witch family, but their mother has turned away from her family and her, like, magical powers. But like I said in the Reese Witherspoon Book Club review, if you're a natural-born witch and you have magical powers, things are going to happen. You're going to tend to pick up. I think I've got magical powers. And what I said before was even though this book did have all those fun magical elements, you know, of a great fantasy, it also had such a great story of family and emotion and sisterhood, and it takes you from when they're little girls to old women, and I just love this book so much. I said, I know Alice Hoffman has written so many books, but if she wanted to stop writing those other books and just continue to write about this family, that would be a-okay with me. I would read every single one of them. The other book for the Reese Witherspoon Hello Sunshine Book Club was From Scratch. Now, The Rules of Magic I gave 5 stars. This one I gave 4 stars. This is the Infamous Memoir, which like I said, I have just accepted. I cannot say that word. It's a very strange word. This story is about Tembi. She falls in love with her husband when she goes to Italy during college, and they have to face so many obstacles before they kind of find their happy ending. His family does not approve of him marrying a black woman. They really don't approve of him marrying a black woman who's an American. They also have to deal with fertility issues, and they have to go through adoption. They just have to go through so many things before they kind of get to a good place. And then once they get to that good place, Sarah gets cancer, and, she has to see him through that. But the book really is more about what happens after he passes and how she kind of comes back. And she ends up going back to Italy to spread his ashes and ends up going and being with his family. And she learns a lot about forgiveness. And it's just a really good emotional roller coaster. I said the only reason I gave it 4 stars was because even though she went through so much and I thought she did a great job making you feel like you were there with her, I couldn't actually relate to her particular problems that she had. But some people, I think that this would be a 5-star read. It was just 4 stars because I, knock on wood, have not had these particular issues. But it was very good for a memoir. It's just never going to happen. Next, I picked up a book that I got at BookCon. It was The Dreaming Tree, and I don't know if you guys remember, those of you who watched the BookCon haul, my husband actually is the one who stood in line and got this, and the guy wrote, "Natalie, you have the world's greatest husband." Supposedly, my husband and this author just really, really hit it off. And this was another sci-fi thriller, and it really was really amazing. Actually, I just realized something. I read 3 sci-fi. I said 2. No, I read 3 sci-fi. This is the second sci-fi that I read. And this is an interesting premise. This is the whole idea of somebody getting a full body transplant, where basically the only part of you that you have that is your original part is your head. The main character is Royce. He gets his head kind of cut off in a car accident, is like the 3rd person in the whole world to get a body transplant. And trust me, this is not an easy process. It takes like 2 to 3 years to recover from this surgery. What makes this book so interesting, of course, the science in this, and you could tell that the author really did his research, but when we think about thinking and who we are, essentially, we think about it all being in our brain. And really, it's not all in our brain. There are, the way the thought process, the way our nerves are, there is essentially parts of our being that are throughout our body. We are not just our brain. So Royce starts feeling and getting thoughts from his host, and then he starts having these blackouts and all these grisly murders start happening around him, and he's going, oh my gosh, is it me? He doesn't know anything about whose body he even has, so he has to go figure that out. This book was so fast-paced, full of just energy and twists and turns. I mean, it just kept you on your toes, and I really highly recommend it. This book is out. This is not actually an arc. It is a book that came out in 2019, but it is not an arc. It is out. You can go get it or check it out, but I really recommend it if you like sci-fi thrillers. Next, I picked up Natasha Preston again, and this time I read The Kabin, and I think I told you guys in one of my wrap-ups, Natasha Preston is a new author for me, and she's not a new author. She writes YA mystery thrillers, but what I love about her writing is she doesn't have those endings that end perfectly, with a nice little tie it up with a bow. Her endings are fascinating. In fact, that's what makes her book so great. Not everything that makes it great, but it's definitely one of the big pluses of her books. Her endings are awesome. In this one, our main character is Mackenzie, and she goes away with a bunch of her friends to stay at one of the friends, like, their parent has a cabin out in the woods or something, and they go away for a weekend, and they're partying, and they're drinking, doing what, teenagers will do, and then they all kind of pass out drunk, and they wake up the next morning, and 2 of the friends have been stabbed dead. And the police can tell that nobody broke into the house. It has to be somebody that was within the house. There's a guy that came along that was kind of new to the group that she kind of is hot for. She doesn't want to believe it's him, but also she doesn't want to believe it's one of her best friends. And you really go through this book, and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know who did it. They all seem innocent to me. But at the end, obviously, there were some guilty people or guilty person, or maybe they all did it, or maybe she did it. I'm not going to tell you. You gotta read the book. The next book was another sci-fi. This was Defy the Stars by Claudia Gray. I don't know why I'm telling you the author, since I haven't told you really the authors of most of these books. I always forget to tell you the author, but I figure if I'm holding up the book, y'all can read the author's name so I don't really sweat it. But anyway, this was not a sci-fi thriller. The other sci-fis I read were sci-fi thrillers, which I really, really like. But this is more of a space opera. At least that's what I've heard it called, and it made sense to me. In this book, there are two main characters. The first one, I think her name is Naomi. It's kind of spelled weird. And she is from the planet Genesis. She's a soldier who is trying to protect her planet from Earth, because Earth is really, falling apart, and we are invading other planets, and we're not being very nice. And then our other main character is Abel, who is like the most highly advanced, I want to say robot, but he's like a robot that looks like a person. You wouldn't know it was a robot that was ever developed, that got stuck on some ship that's been kind of floating around for 30 years. And he's from Earth. But because of his programming, when they meet up, he has to do what she says, like she becomes his next master. So even though they're from completely opposite sides of all the drama and war and everything going on, they have to work together and they have to get a lot done. And this was really, really great. I gave it 4 stars. I'm pretty sure it was Katie from Book Bliss that I saw talking about this book that made me want to read it. And I'm really glad she did, because I really, really enjoyed it. Like I said, 4 stars. Now this next one you might have heard of because it has been talked about on BookTube quite a bit recently, and that would be One of Us is Lying. And this book was so much fun. It really was The Breakfast Club with a murder. Essentially, that's really what it was. You have 5 very, very different students who, there's one who's beautiful and popular, and one of them who's kind of the bad boy. I mean, like I said, different characters like The Breakfast Club who have after-school detention. One of them dies, and then the book is told through the perspectives of the 4 remaining students, of them trying to figure out who did it. And like I said, it was really a lot of fun. I liked it a lot. I gave it 4 stars. I liked it so much that now I'm reading another book by her. I think it's her second book, and it's called Two Can Keep a Secret. So that shows you how much I enjoyed this one, that when I saw that one in the store, I grabbed it up. The next book I did not mean to read in June, but I ended up reading it, and it was one of those things, I think I read it literally in like one evening and one morning. It was another Natasha Preston book. It was You Will Be Mine. Now this one is set in a college town with college-age students. Now the main character in this is named Lila. She lives in a house with 4 other college students who pretty much are her closest friends. And one night before they all go out to some big party, they get this weird note that somebody's like cut out letters from a magazine so you can't tell what the handwriting is. And all it says is, "You will be mine." And it's supposed to be for one of her friends, Sunny, one of the guys who lives in the house. And they don't take it too seriously. They're kind of like, okay, whatever. They're on their way out to party. But then Sunny never comes home. And then Sunny is found dead. And then as this book continues, there's more weird notes just like that one that start showing up, and more people start dying, and Lila is desperate to find out who is doing this so she can stop it. And this was just, like I said, she just has really, really fun books that don't have those perfect endings. They have those endings that make you think, and they're just, like I said, they're fun. I know that sounds weird, I'm talking about people with dead bodies, but it's fun. Now, the last book I'm going to tell you about is the one I am the most excited to talk about. I got it as an ARC at BookCon, but it is out now. You can buy it, and I recommend you check it out. Either buy it or check it out at your library if they have it, or get it on your Kindle. I don't know, but you gotta read this book. It is Stepsister. Stepsister is the story of Isabel, who is one of Cinderella's evil stepsisters. And this story takes place pretty much right after Cinderella is whisked away to her happily ever after. And what I loved about this book is in the story Cinderella, you pretty much have good guys and bad guys. Cinderella is good, the prince is good, the stepsisters are bad, the mother's bad. But in this book, everybody is has good sides and bad sides. She makes them all complete people. And we get the whole story about how Isabel isn't beautiful and she isn't, quiet. She says what she thinks. And it really kind of talks about some of the stereotypes in fairy tales that I didn't even realize were in there until I started reading this. I was like, oh my gosh, we do have that, you need to be beautiful and kind of quiet and keep to yourself and, don't mind if you're being mistreated. Don't stand up for yourself. So this book was so wonderful. And I actually saw one of the girls from Owl Crate when she did her mid-year freakout tag say that this was the best book of the year for her, and the character was her, favorite character of the year. I really would love to see this book just blow up on BookTube. It is so wonderful. It has such a great message. really a great book, like you want to read, you want young girls to read. Like, it has such a good message to it. It's very, very entertaining. I don't know what else to say to make you read this book, but just to tell you how wonderful it is. It is that wonderful. So those are the 13 books that I read. If you like what you saw, please hit subscribe. I have paid YouTube a little bit extra. I now have a magical subscribe button. That's right. If you hit subscribe, you are going to be guaranteed good luck. And who doesn't need good luck? I would hit the subscribe button if I were you. And if you've already hit it, it kind of it grandfathers you in, so you're going to start having a lot better luck. I'm serious. I'm going to hear about it. Also, don't forget to follow me on Twitter and Instagram. As I always say, I will follow you right back, and I always do. I have so many videos coming up, I don't even know where to start. I was out for a week because I got super duper sick. You're probably going to see a video probably almost every day for next week with the amount that I have backed up. But I do have tons of videos coming out very, very soon, trying to play catch up. Also, I am going to be participating. Chaptercviii is doing a Monster-a-thon in September. I'm going to link that down in the description. It's going to be broken up into teams. It sounds so much fun. I've already joined or signed up for it. I really recommend you looking into it because, like I said, it sounds amazing. So I'll link that in the description. And thank you so much for watching, guys, and I will see you later. Bye-bye.